Follow me. That's not a cheap lens. Right, so there's no denying that one of the most hyped phones of 2022 is this guy, the Nothing Phone 1. Nothing is a brand new London-based company claiming to be taking a fresh attack on the tech industry, providing products that remove barriers between people and technology, creating a seamless digital future. Big claims. No barriers, hence nothing. And in there lies a clue about a possible, almost Apple-like future ecosystem. But more on that shortly. It's been about 2 weeks since its launch, there has been a software update, and I have a few key takeaways that I think are absolutely crucial for you to know if you are indeed looking to run out and purchase one of these. Mostly my observations are extremely positive, but there are a couple of, should we say, not sure about that points, which could be absolute deal breakers for you. I'm going to go over all of the reasons why this phone was so hyped and whether the hype was indeed justified. There you go, there's one of them. Like the video if you enjoy it, subscribe and tap the bell if you want to see more like this. That just sounds a bit weird. So firstly, the much hyped design. Now, for the record and for context, I used to love curved displays when they were first invented, back, think, the Samsung S6 series. I had the Edge Plus and I thought the wraparound display looked absolutely incredible, but I also really liked the sharp edges of the rear, and subsequently preferred Samsung Note phones to the S series for that sharper, boxier look. I just think it looks and feels more premium, yada yada. But fast forward a few years, it seems like nearly every single Android phone now has a curved display, and it doesn't have the same unique, desirable appeal anymore. Especially since the latest iPhones have kind of gone full circle back to the razor-sharp frames, which incidentally has made me fall in love with an iPhone design for the first time in a long time. Notch and comically wide aside, I love the way they look and feel. In fact, really that and the pretty much unbeatable battery currently right now are the main reasons why I've jumped from Android to iPhone for the first time really ever for a period. It's about 3 months now. More on the Nothing Phone's battery in a minute. But there is no denying that the Nothing Phone 1's hardware and to some extent software have been heavily influenced by the latest iPhones. But although the Gorilla Glass 5 build is a couple of generations old and not quite up to the same standards as the Victus on the S22 Ultra or Ceramic Shield on the iPhone 13 Pro Max, for example, it still offers decent protection and it doesn't feel like a knockoff. It is lighter than the iPhone 13 Pro Max, expected stainless steel versus aluminium, but also, surprisingly, it's lighter than the standard iPhone 13, which also has an aluminium frame. And remember, the dimensions are bigger. I personally prefer something a little bit heavier, makes it feel slightly more robust, but you might prefer something a bit lighter. And bearing in mind, I'm not the most careful of people. I haven't had any major dings or scuffs. I don't know why that word sounded like that. Scuffs. No major signs of any wear and tear, but again, as always, cases, skins and screen protectors are advised, and the IP53 rating means that most contact with dust and water is fine, although submerging it isn't advised, even though, again, there are tests that have been shown on other smartphones with IP53 rating. You can do that for a period, and the phone is absolutely fine. How risky do you feel? Do it at your own peril, I think is the term. The term? The thought. Let's move. When we lay the phone side by side with an iPhone 13, if you didn't know any better, you would be forgiven for thinking that this is just another one in the iPhone range. With a funky skin on, of course, and this perfectly placed subliminal circle right in the middle where you would expect an Apple logo to be. I see what you're doing. Nothing, all right? I might add, it's really nice to see symmetrical bezels like on the iPhones at half the price. Great stuff. Now, funnily enough, you can now get similar Nothing style skins to go on other smartphones, including iPhones, which, number one, is a compliment to the Nothing team for making waves in this area, but there needed to be more to the back panel than meets the eye for this to be the case, and certainly we have that with this new glyph interface. A really unique, customizable LED indicator. But has it been really helpful after a few goes, or is it just a bit of a gimmick? Well, firstly, you can customize ringtones and patterns and assign individual contacts. You can have a charging meter which shows you the charging progression at a glance, which is really handy. And there is a flip to glyph feature that basically mutes your phone when you flip it the other way round and lay it display down on a desk. Now, I personally have used this feature for sure, as I have, surprisingly, the glyph lighting in the camera. And I'll touch more on that when we go into camera. But slightly disappointingly, because I really wanted to use it more, haven't used the glyph feature as much, largely down to the fact that I think I don't personally select different ringtones for different people. I'm just not that person. I would like to see more customization with the lighting system. I would prefer to be able to differentiate what notifications I'm getting from which app. I think that would be really helpful if I'm getting a notification on WhatsApp, Twitter, Instagram. Having different LED indicators for those different apps, I think would be really, really helpful so that I know that's really important. I'm getting an important text message, for example. And I just think that would be more helpful than the current state of affairs. By the way, feel free to come and follow me over on Twitter and Instagram. We have a lot of banter over there. Good times.
This is great banter. It really is.
Also on the glyph feature, as cool as it does look, most people will still prefer to put their phone down on its back to protect the display. So I'm not sure how many people would use this religiously for its intended purpose. But you might. Positively, it seems the glyph feature doesn't really affect the battery too much at all. Although, on a battery note, that is one of the big things that I am missing coming from the iPhone 13 Pro Max. I have noticed a difference. As good as the battery optimization is on the Nothing phone, I feel that to get anywhere close to the flagship iPhones, you probably needed to have at least a 5000 mAh battery cell in here compared to the 4500 that we have. Okay, battery life, fairly decent, nothing groundbreaking. Of course, this is all user dependent. Outside of that, the squared off aluminium frames, button and camera placements are all very similar to the more expensive iPhones, but the Nothing Phone 1 is priced pretty much the same as the budget iPhone SE, starting from just £399. In fact, if you saw this phone on the Apple website, it might even make a better iPhone SE than the iPhone SE. Better design, better display, better feel in the hand, bigger battery, faster charging at 33 watts, and arguably a better camera. Photos from the main 50 megapixel f1.9 sensor might not be perhaps quite as accomplished as the solo 12 megapixel shooter on the iPhone SE, but the larger megapixel count means if you need to crop in on shots, you can often pick up more details, and you also simply have more options available because we have an ultra-wide lens as well. The latest software update has seen some improvements to the camera, and you can now use the glyph lighting feature for portrait shots as well, which I think is really handy. So much better than using a flash, and often if darkness is too much, it just gives it that little bump for less noise and a sharper image. It gives it that kind of studio portrait type of vibe, which I like. And there's also now better colour similarity between the two lenses when jumping between, which can be slightly off-putting, especially when you're viewing photos side by side. And a lot of phone manufacturers seem to have a problem with this. I wouldn't say breathtaking images, and certainly as light diminishes, there's quite a big drop-off in quality and increased noise in shots. But the one big disappointment for me in the camera department is the shutter speed. It just seems to take an age to actually take the shot once you've pressed it. So as a result, any movement in shots can therefore produce a less than desirable end product. I think, or at least hope, this can be improved in future updates, and I have actually installed a Gcam mod, the Google Pixel camera app, on here, and that has actually helped quite significantly with that issue. I now often, for portrait shots, will use the Gcam app, and images are pretty crystal. I suppose the camera, like with a lot of the phone's non-flagship attributes, is certainly passable for the right person. And another example of this is performance. Now, elephant in the room, one of my biggest wince moments when hearing the leaked specs of the Nothing Phone 1 was the chipset of choice, the Snapdragon 778G Plus. Not because I thought it was a terrible chipset, but because I knew straight away a lack of an industry-leading flagship chip would turn potentially a fair few away, especially those coming from the OnePlus phones, Nothing founder Carl Pei's previous company, as they always had the latest and greatest SoCs. OnePlus in the early days made huge strides because they offered top-tier flagship device performance for less. This isn't the case for Nothing, focusing more on design and user experience, the feel of use. But how obvious is it that we don't have a highest end chip in here? How noticeable compared to a Snapdragon 8 Gen 1, for example? Just how much better is it, and is it hugely noticeable? Well, here is a top tier OnePlus 10 Pro, and you can see for yourself. Raw benchmarks lay out a clear winner, but how does that relate into real world use? Well, for a start, the Nothing Phone 1's combination of a similar 120Hz OLED display and a real lack of any bloatware on this close to stock Android Nothing OS skin means the 778G Plus feels unexpectedly really fast and smooth. Like, legitimately, even coming from an A15 Bionic chip, the latest and greatest from Apple, probably the most powerful SoC on the planet right now, I wouldn't say the switch has been necessarily jarring. And a couple of jitters here and there, with really heavy multitasking and high-end gaming, it's been pretty flawless. Decent, if not incredible haptics, adding to that user experience, an incredible option at this price point. You can tell a lot of work has gone into the animations and the feel of navigation, and on the whole, it's been a joy to use. I do find the swipe right to Google app can sometimes lag a little, but I have noticed that on many Android phones, to be fair, and I often turn it off. Something you can do here in the settings. The fingerprint scanner continues to be very fast and accurate, and next to it you have access to some of your Google Home features, like any cameras you may have set up, which I think is really handy again. I can often quickly just have a little check without actually fully going into the Google Home app. Now, having the Nothing special font is also a really nice touch, although personally I'm not a huge fan of the actual font of choice, but again, this is incredibly subjective. And there are another couple of really unique software features also. Firstly, NFTs, if that's your thing. It's personally not mine, but I know incredibly hyped at the moment, more so a couple of months ago. Well, putting that aside, if you have them, you can actually view them in 5 different sizes and monitor their price all from your home screen in a native NFT gallery. I did inquire with the Nothing team whether there is any plans to include more crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc., and features surrounding the whole of the ecosystem, but as of yet, nothing of note. Also, under the experimental features tab, you have a connect to tester feature, apparently allowing you to unlock doors, turn on AC, etc. But I can't possibly test whether that works and is indeed good or not, because I don't currently own a Tesla. Now, one other great software feature is not only do the Nothing Buds have very slick pairing and a reverse wireless charging feature as well using the phone, but so do Apple AirPods. You can check the Apple product's battery status without the need for a third-party app, which is really nice to see. It's like they're not cutting off their nose to spite their face. They know a lot of people use AirPods, and they've kind of included it. Again, leading you to believe that the Nothing brand is interested in it. Is interested in a smooth transition between different areas of tech and looking to coexist with other giant brands as well, not be a direct competitor necessarily. A smart move, I think, in this overly tribal space. So while some of these additional Nothing Phone 1 software features feel more like a sort of in the works rather than finalised full-scale features, it's nice to know the idea of further parts to an ecosystem and just integration with other current tech, even outside of the Nothing brand as a whole, are brewing. We've had the Nothing Buds, now we have the Nothing Phone 1. What's next? When I spoke to the Nothing team recently, I pried about this and a possible laptop, for example, and while they remain tight-lipped on that, I definitely got the sense that there is definitely, it's a lot of definitely's, definitely more products coming further down the line. And I'm really excited about where this brand can go. For a startup company, the amount of hype they've produced, the product that's on the whole, I think so far has been a success. Personally, I think for a brand new startup company, this is a really, really impressive first take. But for me, I'm super excited, more so, to see what they can produce on a flagship level. I think if this is what they're producing for a mid-range phone, my expectations for a top-tier flagship is pretty high indeed. Let me know what you think of the Nothing Phone 1 in the comments. Is it exciting? Does it live up to the hype? Are you going to be getting your hands on one? And like the video if you enjoyed it and found it helpful. Subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to see more content like this. Follow me. That's not a cheap lens. You've got to subscribe now and watch more videos so that I can afford a brand new lens. I mean, to be fair, most of you say stop flailing your arms around anyway, so it's probably my own fault. I love you, leave you. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.